So let's talk a little bit about pelvic floor dysfunction right now. You and I both are moms. We had huge babies. I want you to share a little bit about your experience with pregnancy, and I will, and we're going to then go into pelvic floor dysfunction. Statistics show about half of all women are going to get pelvic floor dysfunction, 1/3 to half of all women, but that's women who report it. And my personal experience is that every woman I know has some signs of pelvic floor dysfunction, and they're just not talking about it. So I really believe that it's much higher than that, and there's so much we can do to prevent it. So let's talk about you as a mom and your pregnancy experience real briefly, and what issues you had from it, because pregnancy is so much harder on our bodies than they lead us to believe.
That's great. For me, it was almost 30 years ago the first time that I had almost a 12-pound baby.
Wow.
And he just ripped everything open. I was such a tiny person. I'm still kind of tiny. I don't weigh 110 like I used to, but
you're tiny still.
I think I was about 110 pounds when I got pregnant. I'm 5'1". Look, super short-waisted here, right?
Yeah.
So there was no room for the baby. It looked like I ate a watermelon. I was completely fit. This is back in the day. I was like teaching kickboxing and everything, but I turned to the side and it didn't look like a basketball. It looked like a full-on watermelon. He was huge. And no one ever said anything about diastasis recti.
Yeah.
And exercise was my career at that time. And it's crazy. I was sharing with you earlier, and we can share with the group, like I just now, and I'm 51 years old, and I didn't even know that I had these issues. I went in and had a huge umbilical hernia, and I had a inguinal hernia, and I had a diastasis. And they're like, well, while you're here, just to be honest, I had a breast reduction, and it was with a partner of mine. And he said, your whole insides are just ripped to shreds. And he's like, I don't know how well you function, so well, because I surf, which is extremely core centric. And It's a lot of pushing and puffing.
It's very dynamic.
Very, very dynamic. So I actually think that the blasting and the way that I knew how to core train, I think it actually hid the symptoms that I actually had. One of them could have been life-threatening. So I just think it's so important to put that out there, that even the experts, I didn't have the typical symptoms, so I wasn't even looking in that direction. Pregnancy, how do you have a pregnancy without a diastasis recti?
Yeah, you don't. You have it. I know one mom who literally didn't look pregnant. Like, she maybe at 40 weeks looked, everybody else is 3 months pregnant. But that's like a freak of nature, right? That doesn't happen.
Super tall, yeah.
Yes, I gained over 70 pounds with my son, over 60 with my daughter, probably more, because I'll be honest, I stopped weighing myself. And people would be like, you're all belly. I'm like, I'm really not. And I have so much amniotic fluid when I'm pregnant. My belly looked like everyone thought I was having twins. So I had the diastasis, I had bladder leakage, like sexual dysfunction after. I had a lot of issues.
Oh, yeah, I had 3 C-sections back to back so I had a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a newborn all at the same time, all C-sections, all going out of the same scar. So I know we'll get to it, but we
are going to talk
about scar. That's fascial adhesions, and it's pretty amazing what the tools can do.
Yes,
for that.
Anyone who's had a C-section needs a fascia blast that scar. It's like a given. And then people think long term, there's no, I'm going to have a C-section to save my vagina. That's what they think, which is really the pelvic floor. They think there's no statistical difference really long term. Like, that's just women. That's the way our bodies work, from sitting and movement and daily activities. It can cause so much dysfunction in our bodies. So like back pain, there's that a quiz, that hopefully everyone's already taken, pelvic floor dysfunction, to ask you symptoms, but it's like the constipation people don't realize can be pelvic floor, and that tampon falling out, or that like vaginal flatulence, the queefing they have in yoga class. It's really pelvic floor related, and the inability
we'll talk
to
about
orgasm.
So I'm so glad to know that word still exists.
It does.
I live in Costa Rica and no one knows that word.
Isn't that funny? I mean, it's just, so many people are like embarrassed. I'm like, don't be embarrassed. I've had 30-year-olds, who have bowel incontinence, who are leaking poop as they walk up the steps after a baby. And that's actually way more common than people realize. But
Oh,
it's
it's so common.
yeah, but it's most of the time so easily fixed. So this program is going to help everybody with that.